Welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DeRienzo, and my guest, Philip Vanaver, joining us yet again on Let Them Talk. Joan Musi is not with us, but she'll be back next week, for sure. Okay, well, let's get right down to it. We have so much to talk about here on Let Them Talk. We are live, by the way, and you can call us in the studio at the number, which is listed right there on your screen. In the meantime, though, we're going to talk about Tompkins Square Park, the region around Tompkins Square Park, as part of the Lower East Side Preservation Initiative. Behind me on the screen is a photograph, aerial photograph, taken by Jerry Trudell, a good friend of Tompkins Square Park, in the days when you could, a private aircraft operator could fly and buzz low over New York City. I don't think that's as easy to do nowadays. But we could do that at one time, and we did do that. I was with him when we did that and took that picture. Isn't that an amazing picture? Behind us is Tompkins Square Park in green. I'm pointing to the Chris Todora building right there, and over on this side, see, I'd be a terrible pilot because I can't tell left from right when it's reversed. Over there is St. Bridget's Church, and that is 8th Street, which is on the east side of the park, and Tompkins, St. Mark's Place is on the west side. And so that's just getting people's directions all worked out. And Philip.
Well, I want to say it's a pleasure to be with you again. In the past, you and I have discussed situations that were kind of negative, like the Tompkins Square Park riot.
It was the 20th anniversary.
Right, we did that just almost two months ago, and the campaign finance scandal, and the more negative aspects of some of the zoning proposals for the area which Paul and I live in. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about landmark preservation in New York City, and specifically I'm going to discuss an organization which I become active in, that is the Lower East Side Preservation Initiative. And this organization has been in existence really since about 2007, but I've only been a member since this summer. And the purpose of this organization is to work with the Landmarks Preservation Commission and people in the neighborhood and the community board to both to create a historic district in the Lower East Side, and currently our organization is doing a study of the area that Paul alluded to, adjacent to Tompkins Square Park. That's our beginning, but we have gotten funding from our City Council person, Rosie Mendez, to create a website, and I'm going to hold up our
I'll bring it up a little bit, a little easier for folks to see. I think you can see it pretty well there.
And we're going to be creating an interactive website, but this is how you can
Let's say it to folks. It's www.lespi-nyc.org.
And we'll be holding this up again for later in the program. But anyway, I want to say a few words about landmark preservation, both in the city and generally. And for those of you who don't know this, the Landmarks Preservation Commission was founded in New York City in the mid-1960s, and this resulted from the destruction of Penn Station. It was just right before I came to New York in 1966. It was at 8th Avenue and 34th Street, and the destruction of this landmark, this monumentally important building in New York City, which virtually everybody in the entire metro area was familiar with, and was a greatly admired building, kind of gave rise to the creation of the Landmark Preservation Commission. And if my information is correct, Greenwich Village was the first historic district, and we will be talking a little bit about the process of getting landmark preservation designation for a specific site in relationship to what we're doing. Now, I did not bring photographs with me of sites on the Lower East Side because I thought it perhaps easier if I just describe in words the area which our group is at first dealing with. That is the area between 14th Street and Houston, between 4th Avenue and Avenue D. Now, this is an area that is largely made up of tenements. these are the characteristic tenements of Manhattan and other parts of New York that were built mostly from the 1870s through about 1915, 1920. There are various kinds. There's what's called the New Law tenement, which was instituted in 1901, and before that there was the Old Law tenement or the Dunbell buildings. These buildings are usually about from 5 to 7 stories high, and they create a characteristic cityscape. In addition to this, there were earlier 19th century townhouses. The area which we're discussing tonight grew up really in the years beginning in the early first decades of the 19th century, when there was what was called dry dock country along the East River, where Avenue D is now westward toward what's now Tompkins Square Park. And so in that area...
Why do they call it the dry dock area?
Well, it was called the dry dock area because ships were refitted there. And this was a thriving business that started, as I said, in the first decades of the 19th century. And
clipper ships and things like that, the dramatic clipper ships. It was a dramatic thing.
Yes, and the homes of the wealthy ship chandlers were down toward the river, down toward the East River, and so some of those still remain, scattered around what were the East Village. And so, in addition, of course, you have a lot of housing authority buildings and Michelamas and other large developments that were built from the end of the Second World War through the 1960s and early 70s. So you have a mix of architecture, but the predominant feeling of the area is the low-rise tenements, which these buildings, the tenements were not strictly speaking architect design, but what is interesting, and one of the things that I've been doing with the Lower East Side Preservation Initiative, is to identify those sites where well-known people lived. You know, people like Charlie Mingus, people like Huddie Ledbetter, better known as Leadbelly. People like the well-known writer and poet Frank O'Hara. And what's most interesting is that many of these buildings look today. When I was doing a walking tour and a study, it was quite remarkable to me that so many of these buildings are just as they were, you know, 50, 60 years ago. And I'm going to show you this map, which is available at the St. Mark's bookstore in the East Village. And this is basically a walking map, a walking tour, and it gives some rudimentary information. And I'm just showing this to you.
Let me pull it up to the window here.
Because